You know, right now, as we speak, there's this invisible war being fought all around us, just underneath the surface of our digital lives. It's a constant battle between the people who build the walls to protect our data and, well, the people who spend every waking moment trying to tear them down. Today, we're going to go deep inside the minds on both sides of this fight, the defender and the attacker.
And yeah, it might be an invisible battle, but the stakes, they couldn't be higher. We're talking about everything from your personal photos all the way up to national secrets. So how do you even prepare for a fight that's changing all the time? Well, it all comes down to two very, very different ways of thinking. So let's start with our first line of defense, the blue team. These are your protectors, your engineers, your security analysts. Their whole job is to build the fortress, watch the walls, and be ready to spring into action the second an alarm goes off. But see, to build a strong defense, you first have to know what you're even defending against. And that, right there, is the question at the very heart of everything they do. I mean, it's not enough to just build a high wall, right? You have to know if the enemy is coming with a ladder, or maybe a catapult, or a giant battering ram. For the defender, the strategy really begins and ends with understanding exactly what they're up against.
And one of the biggest threats they face is something we call malware. Now, forget thinking of this as just some simple computer virus. The absolute best way to think about malware is to see it as a digital weapon. It's the arsenal of the modern attacker, and believe me, it comes in a lot of different forms.
So the blue team, they've got to become experts on the anatomy of every single one of these weapons. They have to know how a virus latches onto a file, how a worm can just crawl through a whole network all by itself, how a Trojan horse tricks you into basically lowering the drawbridge, and of course, how ransomware can hold your entire digital life hostage. To build the right shield, you absolutely have to know the sword. Okay, but this is where it gets really tricky. Because the strongest digital fortress in the entire world, it can have one critical weakness: the people inside. So what happens when the weapon isn't code, but psychology? And that's where phishing comes in. It's truly the art of deception. It's this super clever type of attack that just sidesteps all the technical defenses by going after the human mind instead. It uses trickery, manipulation, anything to convince you to just hand over the keys to the kingdom. We're talking passwords, credit card numbers, all of it. So what this means is the blue team has to fight a war on two fronts. On one side, sure, they use technical stuff like email filters to block junk. But that second front, it's arguably even more important: human defense. They train people, like you and me, to spot the red flags. They're essentially trying to turn the entire company into a human firewall. It just goes to show you, a defender's job is as much about psychology as it is about technology. All right, so now that we get the defenders, it's time to hop over to the other side of the battlefield. Let's get to know the red team, the professionals who literally get paid to think like the enemy. Okay, time to switch hats. Because think about it. To really truly test a fortress, you can't just sit around and wait for a real attack. You have to think like the invader. And that's the red team's job. They simulate real-world attacks to find all the cracks and weaknesses before the real bad guys do. So while the blue team is focused on the what, the red team, they're obsessed with the who and the why. They don't just study the weapon, they study the warrior. Who is actually behind this attack? What's their motivation? Is it just some kid in a basement messing around, or is it a highly funded, state-sponsored group on a strategic mission? And this spectrum is just huge. On one end, you've got your script kiddies. They're amateurs using tools they downloaded, making a ton of noise. Simulating them is basically like checking if the basic locks on the doors work. But on the other end, you have advanced persistent threats, or APTs, and these are the pros. They're well-funded, they're patient, they're surgical. Their goal isn't a quick smash and grab. It's to get inside a network and live there silently for months, conducting espionage. Simulating an APT, well, that's the ultimate stress test. So we have the blue team who studies the weapon and the red team who studies the warrior. But what happens when you make them work together? That is when defense evolves into something way more powerful. Just think about it for a second. The blue team brings this deep expertise on the weapon. They know the malware, they know the phishing emails, they know the what of an attack. And then the red team comes in with a deep understanding of the warrior, their motives, their tactics, the who and the why. So when you combine the expert on the weapon with the expert on the warrior, that's when you finally get a complete 360-degree view of the entire battlefield. This whole idea, this collaborative approach, is called purple teaming. And it's not really a separate team, it's more of a philosophy.
The red team will launch a simulated attack, and the blue team tries to spot it in real time. But instead of just waiting for some report a week later, they're talking constantly. Hey, I just used this new technique, did you see it? And the blue team says, yeah, we saw it, but the alert we got wasn't clear enough. This immediate feedback loop lets them fix vulnerabilities and fine-tune their defenses right there on the fly, creating security that's actually adaptive and intelligent. Now, you might be sitting there thinking this is all high-level corporate security stuff, but these mindsets are so relevant to your own digital life. I mean, at the end of the day, you are the defender of your own data, your own devices, your own identity. So this brings the final question right back to you. In your own digital life, are you only thinking like a defender? Using strong passwords, having antivirus software? That's the blue team mindset, and it's absolutely essential. But are you also thinking like an attacker? Are you asking yourself, if I wanted to hack me, how would I do it? Maybe you'd go after that old, forgotten social media account that has a weak, reused password. Adopting that personal purple team mindset, thinking from both sides, is what separates a potential victim from their own best defender. Because really, the strongest walls are the ones built by someone who knows exactly how they can be torn down.